And you could argue even Samsung, they're under a lot of pressure from Apple as well. Now that they've launched this big phablet, it's a space that Samsung has been, previously dominating, and now they've got the pressure from Apple. So even Samsung's under pressure. I think when it comes to Sony's perspective, it's an even worse situation because they don't have as big of a base as Samsung has. So it is going to be a difficult challenge for them where they're kind of, stuck between a rock and a hard place. They can't fight on the high end. They don't want to fight on the low end. And they're kind of stuck in a jam.
Now, Bryan, we had a guest on earlier on the show who just said that Sony just needs to sell off the mobile phone business, sell off the entire electronics business as a whole and focus on entertainment and other divisions. Do you think that's a good idea?
It'd be interesting. I mean, you think about those that might, want to acquire the brand names, some of these sub-brand names that they have. There is certainly still some residual value left in that. It could be interesting if, let's say, a Chinese player, and again, this is pure speculation, by the way, takes advantage of some of those assets. But even then, you could argue that some of these brand names, their luster is worn over the years as well, too, right? Walkman and some of these other things. Like, yeah, they had their days. These days, it's not Walkman, it's iPod or iPad, probably, and the way everything has been going with Apple. So it's... I mean, there is some potential, but, then you could argue, okay, where does Sony stand as a record label and as a Hollywood producer? It'd be, another thing.
Yeah, Bryan, just real quickly, back to the handsets. Handsets now, it seems to me the next big thing is platforms for payment. We're talking about NFC and Apple Pay, etc. I mean, it's ironic that the Japanese came up with something called Felica. Many years ago, perfected it for the Japanese market, but it didn't really go anywhere from here. I mean, Sony, how much of a chance do they have to latch on to something like Felica?
Yeah, well, it's kind of been here and there in Japan, and I think the interesting thing is with what Apple has done with Apple Pay, that may be the boost that the industry needs, even if it is a bit more U.S. focused. Now, having said that, however, I was talking to some folks in the financial industry the other day where, if you look at where NFC cards are going, there are concerns being raised by merchants about, the acquiring bank, the time it takes for the bank to clear the payments and all that. It actually lends, the longer-term direction is things like Alipay, which, by the way, uses lower technology like QR codes rather than NFC because the payments clear much quicker. It basically goes right directly into the account rather than having to wait for this whole NFC infrastructure.
Okay.
So.